Release one would be great.
To-do lists.
Yes, sir.
All right, yep, that's something I had planned. So, okay, I'm happy to do it. I have some code started for us, so we don't have to go through all the installations and setup. So part of this is going to require Django REST Framework, JWT, the JSON Web Tokens. I already installed that. If you guys do want to see like the process of adding all the code, we can go through that. But hopefully you guys can walk through the page on Tuesday. So I actually have that up because, again, this is not something I've memorized. There's a lot of, a lot of code that we provide. A lot of it maybe doesn't make sense, but this is kind of the stuff that we need just to get the core functionality for ourselves. So I already incorporated this into my code. But yeah, let's see what I have so far and we can go from there. All right, so okay, so I've created a project in VS Code. I have a backend project and a front-end project. So my front-end is my React application, and my backend is my Django Python application. All right, so again, we're tackling the to-do list challenge. And yeah, let's see how far we can get with it. Again, this is definitely a longer challenge, so we might skip some of these steps or not handle all the functionality, but we definitely want to get something up and running that we can use. All right, so release 0 is we're going to install a bunch of stuff. All right, again, I already did this just to kind of review the items I did install for my backend project. I'm going to go to my requirements.txt. So I think there was a total of 6 items I had to install, and I guess a few extras that came along the way. So initially, obviously installed Django to use Django. Cycob, again, that's for using Postgres. We're all probably familiar with that. Then installed, I guess, these 4 Django extensions. One being CORS headers, so that's just the ability to use various hosts to connect to our backend. Django Heroku, again, this would be to deploy to Heroku. I don't know if we'll get to that step, but just install it anyway. The 2 main points of interest will be Django REST Framework and Django REST Framework JWT, the JSON Web Tokens. So that's what we're going to use for authentication. I don't know if you guys actually read the documentation for Django REST Framework, but the base Django REST Framework actually provides some authentication. You could use tokens, you could use session storage or cookies. You could also use something they call just simple authentication, where you just pass a username and password, and that kind of handles authentication for you. But yeah, so that's built into Django REST Framework. We're using the JSON Web Tokens, which is open standard and used a lot in the real world. So that's why we kind of went that extra step. But again, you can do authentication with the base Django REST Framework. So just want to mention that. All right, so I've installed all these things, so we don't want to go through the process of doing that. I've also coded up the authentication stuff on the back end. So if you want to just kind of highlight that, again, there's a lot of code that was provided for us. Starting with my settings file, just to review, we added REST Framework from the REST Framework stuff. The core stuff I added here, and hopefully I don't have any typos this time. Sorry, these 2 items, CORS headers is what I added. As far as the, where is it? All right, maybe I still need to add the, let's see. All right, sorry, I thought I had added the authentication stuff, but maybe I lapsed on that. So let's actually just copy that over. So going back to Tuesday's lecture, again, we have all this code for us. Let's start from the top. So I added the core stuff, but I guess I forgot the REST Framework stuff, so I'm just going to copy that over. And that can just be dropped somewhere here. Just drop that right here. All right, so REST Framework, again, these items need to be added so that everything will work correctly for us. Again, that was just copy and pasting. CORS whitelist, I think I have that. Yep, that's fine. Okay, so let's get to adding some of this stuff. All right, so I've created my Django project called to-do API project or _proj, and then my app is my to-do _API. So yeah, let's kind of get this up and running. So I'm going to go to my URLs first, and this is where I'm just going to include my app URLs, so include here. And that's going to link to my app. So my app, let's just call the base API, since this is going to be an API. And we'll include to-do API URLs. So that's something we need to create. This is a Django app, and those URLs don't get created for our app. So I go to my app file over here, or my app projects. A new file, call it urls.py. Okay, so here we're going to do something similar. So let's copy this stuff. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is add the ability to get a token, because that's something that we use for authentication. So that comes from somewhere. I think it's REST Framework, JWT. Import. All right, so you don't remember it then. Views, okay. Obtain, let me just copy this. All right, so that this is a bit of a, a bit of magic just bundle up for us, and encapsulation would be the, the buzzword for it. Basically, this will generate the token for us, and we don't know how to do anything. It's just magic for us. So let's take advantage of that. So for my path, I'm going to have it be login, and that will just map to obtain JWT token. Again, you can set any path you want. So I'm just going to have it map to login, and I'll use that function. All right, so that should be all we need to do there. Let's see what else we need to do. So migrate, create a super user, run server. Okay, let's test this out. So I'm just going to create a super user. So let's do Python. All right. Try again. All right, third time. All right, and then all right, super user is created. Let's see if we can use our user now. All right, so we can go to Postman and try to go to login. So login will take in username and password. So let's put that into our body. JSON. So we'll have username. And my username is admin for my super user, and then my password, super secret password, was admin. Okay, so let's send that over again. So I'm sending it to /login because that's what I routed to over here. But I guess my base was actually API, so I need to actually prepend that, else I won't get to the correct location. So that's API /login, and let's give this a run. So this is going to be a post actually, not a get. Send that, could not send requests because my server is not running. Okay, server's running now. Let's give that a try again. Okay, notice we got a token back, super long string, means something, but I'm not going to bother with the details. You guys can Google, parts of JSON web token, but there's a header body in this secret formula attached here. But yeah, that's our token. So we passed it valid credentials, and we got a token back from the server. So now we could, if we were the had a client app, we'd store this token somewhere, and then we'd use it to make authenticated requests. So that's something we could test out with Postman. Let's continue. Okay, so we have this mapped out. Let's actually, what do we want to do next? Let's get Django REST Framework into the fray. So again, we can do this manually, but Django REST Framework just makes life all the more easier. So yeah, I think release 0 is, or release 1 is creating our models. If I go back to my app, so yeah, we got to create models for our to-do list. So let's kind of think about that and create sensible models. And I will love to have audience participation. So let's see who I see in the audience. Justin Cordero, you are first on my screen. Can you tell me one model that I'll need to create for the to-do list?
The list.
Okay, so I'm going to call it task list. And could you tell me maybe some fields that might make sense to be in here?
Could you open the README again?
Oh, sure.
So you're going to have a list that has many tasks associated. Each task belongs to one list. So the foreign key will be on the actual task. I guess just a list ID is auto-generated, and maybe a list name.
Okay, yep, name makes sense. So let's make that a char field. I'll say max length will be 64. Hopefully we don't have a longer name than that. All right, so name makes sense. Anything else you can think of here?
I don't believe so, because I think the foreign key will be on the actual task model.
Yep. Yeah, so one thing I would want to add is a user that owns the list. So in this case, I'm going to use a foreign key. And then this is where we're using our default model. So that's something we can import from Django contrib.auth.models. All right, got that right. Import user. Again, this is the default baked-in user that Django provides for us. If we wanted to use our own user or kind of extend this user model, we totally could. I think Tom sent out a link resource that talked about various ways about going about it. You can extend the base model. You can create your own and replace the existing one. You could do something called, I think it's like a proxy model. But yeah, so for now, I'm happy with the base user. But if we have time, we could talk about adding more fields to the base user and see how that goes. But for now, I'm just going to use a foreign key, and that's going to point to my user. Related name will be task list. So again, the way I think about this is this name is basically a field that's going to auto-magically that's going to exist on our user. So if I have a particular user, I should be able to call a field called task list, plural, and that should give me all the task lists that this particular user created or owns. So that's how, again, the related name ties in here. I just mentally remember whatever table I'm in or whatever model I'm in, that's the name I give it for the related name, because it's going to be accessed from a different model coming into this model. All right, so related name will be task list, and we got to do our on delete business. So that's models. Always do cascade, because basically if the user gets deleted, then the task list shouldn't exist either. All right, so we have a user. Can anyone think of anything else a task list might have, or something we would want to or need to include?
Yeah,
Do with a date or something, but it's not like totally necessary. Like a created date.
Yeah, sure. Let's do created date, and I'm just going to be default to now, so that'd be models date time field. Anyone remember the default now? I'll have to look that up. Oh, auto now. That sounds like what I want. Auto now equals true. Okay, so created date makes sense. Any other suggestions?
A foreign key with tasks.
So we do need to tie tasks to our task list, but it's actually going to be in our task table model. Let's actually create our task model and talk about that. So we will need something called tasks, or a task model. That's going to be models.model. All right. So one thing I can think of right off the bat is our task will need a name. chart field. Let's make this a little longer because it could be like a detailed task. So let's make that 128. Hopefully that fits our needs. But I think I heard Christian suggest a foreign key somewhere. So Christian, I'm going to chat with you if you don't mind. So I think you were wondering if we could add a foreign key to task list, correct?
Yes, but I guess we don't. The foreign key goes on task.
If we did a foreign key here, models, foreign key, and task, and related name. It's over. Okay, so if we have it like this, Christian, can you tell me what this is kind of representing, or what this foreign key would actually mean, like just in a I guess normal speak, like not in a technical sense, but if we have this foreign key here, what is that saying for the relationship between task and task list?
That a list has. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to say that a list has one task, but a task could have many lists.
Yep. Yeah. So if we put the foreign key into task list, this is going to set a one-to-many relationship, but it's going to say a task list can only have one task, but one task can be in multiple task lists. So based on our requirements, that's kind of the opposite of what we want. So each task should have a Boolean value. Each task should belong to one list. So we do need a foreign key. You're totally right on that, but we actually need to swap this. Because we want a one-to-many relationship, but we want one task list to have potentially many tasks. In this case, we're not doing a many-to-many, so one particular task can't belong to multiple task lists. I guess there could be a use case for that if you kind of think about it. But yeah, for our needs, we're just going to have a particular task will map to one and only one task list. So yeah, I'm going to put my foreign key here, and that will set up the representation that I think we want. So if I have a task here, sorry, this is going to be task list. So basically this task, whatever task I create is going to belong to one particular task list. So that foreign key will be to our task list model. Related name will be task. So again, same way, the way I conceptualized it. The related name here is what field is going to magically appear on a particular task list. So if I have a task list instance, I will have a field that I could call called tasks, and that will give me a list of all the tasks with this task list. So that's how related name is used. All right, so we have tasks, we have a name, a task list. Anything else that we could or should include for a task?
So someone just made a comment in the chat, but I think instead of auto now equals true for the created date, you want to do time zone dot now.
Gotcha. Time zone dot, sorry. As in like the default value?
Sorry, yeah, default equals time zone dot now.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Why do that versus the auto time now?
Good question. I read the docs. What is this? This is Django. They both might work. Let's see what Stack Overflow says. So the time zone. All right, this is more time zone specific.
So Steve put something in the chat, and it says auto now will update every time you save the record to the model. Auto now add will put the date time in once when you create the record and then not change it again. I just suggested time zone dot now because that'll basically do the same thing. But you could also use what Steve said, auto now add.
Gotcha. Sorry, yeah, I don't have the chat in my window, but thanks for monitoring.
Yeah, if you're trying to do a created date or a created time, you wouldn't want to change that. So that if you use the auto now, then no one can change it after it's set, that would be desirable.
So I think the suggestion was auto now add.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, we'll try this out. Again, the date isn't as critical, but thanks for looking out there. Yeah, I probably need to read my docs for the proper way to do that, but let's assume this works. If it doesn't, we could obviously update it later. But yeah, thanks again. All right, so going back to our task model, do you guys have any suggestions or something that we definitely should have or could have?
It's, I was
The
gonna
due
say a
date,
description,
right?
but that's basically also the name.
Yeah, I was just kind of bundling that into the name. Fair enough.
Do a Boolean for completed.
Yep, so we have a completion requirement, so let's add that. Good suggestion there. Complete, let's make it completed equals models dot Boolean field. So this will be a true or false. All right, so yeah, if I want to create a task, let's say I gotta do my laundry this weekend. Laundry would be my name. It'll belong to like my weekend task list. I'll have a completed true or false. Anything else I would need? I guess I could have a created date time on that also, but I'll just have a created date on the task list and have the task kind of be floating. I guess the task should have a due date, so fine, we'll go with that. Due date.
If you want to, like, so for a real world example, if you wanted to have a metric of how early you completed something, you would need to know when you completed it. So you could take the difference between the time and the completed and the due date.
Yeah, sure, let's try that. Time completed. All right, yeah, good suggestions. We'll try these. I'm not gonna add too many more because that's gonna make it a little harder if I run into issues. So yeah, let's go with this. I think it's good enough. We have name, task list, completed true or false, and then time completed. I guess these could kind of be condensed, as in if we have a time completed, we could assume that the task was completed. But I'll keep those separate for now. I don't know why I feel like doing that. All right, so this can be, let's see, blank, because that might not be a value. True, and null equals true. Let's say our default value for completed will be false. So we can add that in here. False, capital F. And then due date, let's make due date optional. So if you don't want a due date, you don't have to enter one in. Okay, so that's our task. Okay, so in our application so far, we have a user, we have task list, and task. I think for now, that should be enough for us to get up and running. Again, there might be additional things we might need to add for extended challenges. I'm not going to pay attention to this at this point. But yeah, let's kind of go with this. All right, so we have our models. I think this is a good design. Let's add a quick str method. I tend to forget them, so since I just remember them, get to add them now. All right, task list will just return self.name. And I guess our task will return the same thing. All right, so we got that. We've made our models. What's a sensible next step to do within our Django workflow?
Make migrations.
Yep, you got it. All right, so since we create some models, we want our database to reflect those models. So let's migrate. So I'm going to do Python manage.py, make migrations. Cool. All right, made our task list and our task. And then I'm going to migrate that. All right, seems like it works. What else? Do we have our server running? Okay. All right, so we got our models made. The next step that I think we should do is make our serializers, because this is our API, so we know we're going to have to serialize data. So our models are done. Let's go with our serializers next, if you guys are cool with that. So I'm going to add a new file, call it serializers.py. All right, so this is where I'm going to take advantage of Django REST Framework. Again, we could make serializers ourselves. We did that last week where we made like our wine serializers manually. But Django REST Framework just makes it all too easy, so I'm just going to go with that. If you guys are fine with that. So we'll do imports from Django, from REST Framework. Anything for me? Serializers, import model serializer. And actually, so doing that, I'm going to import serializers because I know I'm going to need some stuff from that module. All right, so from REST Framework, we're going to use serializers, and there's a model serializers in there. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking. Okay, so let's make our serializers. We're going to need at least 3 serializers. We're going to need a user serializer, a a task list serializer and a task serializer. One step that I did forget, if I remembered from the authentication stuff, we need a serializer for our token. So I'm just going to copy this over. You guys don't mind that? Let's copy it also. Okay, so we have a user serializer that's just going to pass a username. Nothing fancy there. This user serializer with token. This has some stuff going on there. Again, we did a lot of copy and paste, so we probably didn't get too into the details. One thing that I was confused about was this get token function. So I actually searched my entire project and couldn't find anywhere where this get token function was used. So I was like, okay, do we actually need this? So in case you guys don't know, that's coming from this, this item over here that I've highlighted. This serializer method field is, I guess, a special way to handle one of your serializer fields. So in this case, this is saying, I'm going to create a function that's going to return a token value. And this is going to be a read-only value. So you can't set the token. It'll only be a read-only. And that's what this function is effectively doing. So the name is getToken. That is actually kind of a pre-reserved name, as in since my value is named token here, I have to create a getToken method by that name, get_token. I can override that. There is a field in serializer method field if I have my documentation up. Yeah, you can actually pass in the method name and override that. But if you don't pass anything to it, the default is going to be get and your field name. So that's why this function exists. This is going to generate a token value and serve it up for us. Again, this is read only, so you can't write the token value. You only read from it. All right, so that's what this function is doing. Again, there's some magic, JWT stuff going on here. I don't know what's going on there, but I just trust it works, and we'll just go with that. And then create, I think this is just basically handling our password for us. So we're going to get a plain text password. The set password function will actually hash it for us. So we can't just take the password and store it in the database, because that's not going to be what we actually want. So yeah, this strips off the password from the data that's coming in when you're creating a new user, creates an instance, and then sets a password on there. And then again, set password will hash the password appropriately. Then we save the user. So that's what create's doing when we create a user with a serializer. All right, so maybe that was too much talk, but that's what the serializer function is doing. So we got to add a couple more. So we have class. Actually, I'm going to swap this. That should be fine. Yeah. All right, so we have our user serializer kind of done for us. We need our class of task list serializer. And then we also need our task serializer. So this is where it kind of gets tricky. This definitely took me a bit to understand. Reading documentation, finally kind of understanding what made most sense. I can type here. Okay, so let's set these up initially, and then we'll talk about how we kind of link them together and what's the most sensible way to link them. There's a few ways we can link them together. So I'm just going to copy this structure. So this class meta is just like a default way to specify some information. So this model will be task list. And then the fields on that, if I remember correctly, we had name, user, who was the user that created it. What else? I think we had, let's see, create a date. I guess that's all we had. But there's this, again, I call it magic. I don't know if that's an appropriate term, but we also have this magical field created for us called tasks that exist on our task list instance. So we can include that here, tasks. And let's see. All right, so that's for our task list. Our users also have a magical field that got created for us, and that's called task list. And this is the related name that we put on our model. All right, cool. And then let's go with our task. Copy this. Task. And they have a name. They have a task list that they belong to. What else? We had a due date, I think. We had a completed field, Boolean. As I'm typing, any questions so far? Hopefully everything's been straightforward. Basically, we just created our models, and now we're creating our serializers. But please ask questions. Stop me anytime. And we should definitely chat.
Ankur, so the fields that are foreign keys, it was by default, they just return the primary key, right?
Yeah, yep. Let's see, this was completed. I think we called it. Hopefully I remember these fields correctly. Time completed, wrong order. Okay, so sorry, I forget who said that, but yeah, so these foreign keys are going to be just returning primary keys for those values. So if I had a user, I could see the username, like if my username was, John Doe, I could see that name as a string, but my task list will be just integer values representing the IDs of each task list that John Doe created. Okay, so
And as of right now, can you go to the like Django REST panel on your server and post data? Or no?
I can't post it yet because we need to do our views still. So our views are our last step in this process. So I guess the 3 steps are create models, create serializers, create views, and I guess the 4th step is link it up through your URLs. So I'm gonna leave my serializers like this right now, and then we're definitely gonna need to come back to them. So stay tuned, I guess. All right, so we'll come back to those, I promise. I'm gonna go to my views and hook it up with ViewSets from Django REST Framework. So let's just do that quickly. REST Framework imports ViewSets. All right, so here we're just gonna create some ViewSets. We'll have a user ViewSet. All right, this takes 2, I think, required parameters. One is query set. This is how it gets its data. So let's import these things. I think I forgot to import stuff from my serializers. Let me do that quickly. So we're using the model here. So I think that's what we need to import. So we'll do from to do API models, import all that good stuff with user. I guess we're going to user from here, but let's take care of that. We can import from here, user, task, list, and task. The reason we can import user here is because within our models, we're importing user from the correct place, which is Django contrib auth user. So this is totally fine. I'm going to copy this because we want the same thing in our view. All right, we have our models. Query set will be user.objects.all. Again, this is what this view set's going to use as its data. So that's what we're specifying here. And then we need our serializer. So class serializer, I think is what I'm looking for. The opposite. Oh, getting my words mixed up. All right, serializer class, and that's going to be our user serializer in this case. Okay, and we need to import those. A lot of imports. All right, let's quickly copy and paste this. And this basically handles all of our views for us. So the creation, the listing, the updating, these view sets already have the logic baked in. So we're just kind of taking advantage of that. So this would be task list and task list and task list. All right, one more. That'll be our tasks. Oops. Tasks. All right, that took maybe like less than 2 minutes, and we have all of our views set up. So way easier to use Django REST Framework. The last thing we need to do is hook it up here our URLs. So we're going to keep this URL for our getting our token. I'm going to add a few more. So from let's get this part. We need to get a router. So from REST Framework, import routers. import default router. And again, this will just create some, I don't want parentheses there, we'll create default routes for us. We don't need to specify all of like the new, create, update, delete. We just, again, use what Django REST Framework provides for us. All right, to do that, we'll do router equals default router. Then we need to register some items. So router.register each of our paths. So users will be under users. Import that. So from to do API.views, import user ViewSets. All right, get all of our ViewSets in here. You guys got any questions for me? I feel lonely out here.
Ankur, you didn't have to put what's in the README for the JWT README lesson into your views?
So I did that via here. I think that's the only one that I need, right?
I mean, from your views file, there's like a whole, like a current user method and user list method.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's let me find that here just to highlight that somewhere around here.
Right there.
Gotcha. Thank you. So this current view, I could. So these are optional, sort of optional. So let me say that. So this current user will just get some data on the current user. I'm not going to include that because I don't really care about that in my to-do list case, but we could add that. The user list, this is actually being handled by our Django REST framework that we're implementing. So the ViewSets take care of the user list condition here. So when we post to our URL, the user ViewSet will take care of the posting for us. So we don't need to actually do this ourselves. We can do this. Again, if we want to customize something, like I think a good use case for this is if we wanted to control permissions. So if you wanted certain use cases, like maybe any user can create a login user, but only certain users can view all the users in the system, right? I think that's something I talked about yesterday or Wednesday, where like an admin should have access to the get here, but maybe everyone can post. So that's where you can control permissions kind of more especially here. But I'm using Django REST Framework ViewSets, so that's going to take care of a lot of this for me. But I did forget, I think, a couple steps down here, which I'll get to. But yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Again, a lot of code here, but I'm doing some of that already with my Django REST Framework. All right, so user ViewSet. Let me know if that wasn't clear, or if you guys have questions on that. Base name equal user. All right, we gotta do this a couple more times. So we have task list and tasks. All right, so again, just these are going to handle all of our views for us. We don't need to create the URLs for us. That's going to be done by whatever this default router is doing for us. So again, very easy on our from our side to take care of this. Okay, so we have task lists, and user. All right, so these are all of our URLs kind of bundled there. We're still going to use our login, so we'll keep that there. What else? All right, so we got to add this to our URL patterns. So we'll do plus equals and router.urls. Okay, so we got our URLs done, models are done, serializers done, and views are done. I guess those are the 4 steps. Got some errors, so that's something we got to take care of. This is in urls.py. We're here.
I don't think you need the views.user set since you're importing the user, the view sets directly.
Okay. Thank you, good catch. View sets from, right, did I name it? So from user view sets. Oh, sorry. I see what you said, sorry. I need views up here, not views down here. Okay, got those, is that fixed? All right, cool, server's up. All right, let's actually test these out with Postman and kind of see what we can do with it. So again, we should be able to post. A lot of this comes from documentation. So let's go back here, DRF default router. So we're using the default router which is this person over here. So these are the URLs that are, again, by default created for us. So we're actually going to be posting to the same location where we get to see all of our items. So that's, again, something different. When we manually do it, we usually create like a /new URL to create new items. But in this case, we're going to be posting to the same place where we get the entire list. And then we can support get, put, patch, and delete. So let's actually test those out. Hopefully I wired everything correctly. All right, I have Postman up here. So if you remember, our login was API/login. Let's see what our users look like. So if we go to /user, maybe that should be plural. Let me fix that. Users, task lists, and tasks. All right, if we go to users, let's try that out. Got an error. Oh, let me get here. All right, so authentication credential is not provided, so we need to provide a token. So that's something we were just doing. We should have kept that. Login. Post. All right, so we get this token. I'm going to copy this token and maybe save it somewhere. Let's just save it here. Sure. All right, so we need to provide some authentication stuff. So if we go to headers, add authorization. And this would be JWT and the token, if I remember that correctly.
Is there a reason you wouldn't, can you do that through the authorization tab next to headers?
I've actually not used this in Postman, so I assume this is what it's for, but I've actually not used it, so I'm not gonna try to learn it on the spot. If you guys have used it, then yeah, maybe I'll seek your guys' advice. All right, so let's see this. We want to get from user serializer object is not callable. All right, I probably included that incorrectly somewhere. These should not be called. Let's try one. All right, there we go. We got our super user, which is named admin, and then we got an empty task list, because obviously we haven't added tasks for this user. So again, we just kind of review. I know we kind of maybe jumbled some steps. We have to give it an authorization in our headers. So in our header, we have a field, the key being authorization. The token we pass it actually has to be prepended by a JWT and a space, and then your token. You can customize this value. You can change the JWT to be like some other value if you wanted to. That is possible through Django, but the default is JWT space and then your token value. Right, so if we kind of go back to Tuesday, I think that was highlighted somewhere. Yeah, so when we're making our fetch calls from our front end, again, we do JWT space, and then we pass the actual token value. So that's actually what I'm replicating through Postman here. Okay. All right, so it seems like we're able to retrieve our users. Let's actually test out some other things. So we need to create some task lists and some tasks. Let's see if we can do that. I'm not sure actually if that'll work based on our serializers, but let's give it a try. So let's actually create a user. So I'm going to create a post to the same URL. I'm going to go to body section, and all right, let's create a user here. So this will be
if you wanted to do it from the DRF interface, could you do it now if you wanted to?
Yeah, I think that should be up and running. Let's see. Localhost 8000 /API. Okay, there we go. So I guess I need to provide credentials. So I'm not logged in this case. So let's log in. So if we go to API/login, I got a post here. So admin. Okay, so we got a new token. I don't think this is the same as the old one. Actually, I'm not sure. Last four say iPro. Seems kind of fishy. Yeah, so it's a new token. Let's save that here. I need a better place to save these. Let me find somewhere. Is there an online notepad? All right, save them here. So that's my second one I had. My first one was this one. All right, let's keep track of those tokens. Hopefully you guys can remember for me. All right, so my second one is from my Django REST Framework interface. So now that I have that token, let's do some actions here. So let's create a user from here. So if I go to API/users, all right, my GET requests won't work. That's fine. Okay. How do I get to post? Does anyone know?
This is where I got stuck.
Is it a different route?
No, I should be able to post to my user's route. So my login lets me do it. I think this might be because we're using the ViewSets and not specifying what methods are allowed, would be my guess. But it said post is available, right? If we read that page correctly, users, it says post should be allowed, but I don't see an option to post. So I'm just gonna go back to Postman. Essentially, it's the same interface. It's just slightly different. Postman can do what I need. So I'm going to create a user. I'm going to post this URL. So we have post there. Our value will be test1 will be our user. Let's say our password will be 1234. And okay, let's send that. What happens? All right, this always gets me. So for whatever reason, you need to have an ending slash when you're posting. There's a setting in Django. It's confusing. I'm not sure why they do that, but whatever. All right, so signature has expired. That's not good. Let's get another signature then. All right, so I'm use signature. Save that for future use in case we lose it. All right, so I've logged in. Now I can create a user, hopefully. So if I go to users and I post there, let's create a new user called test1 and password will be 1233. Let's give that a try. Oh, forgot to update this.
Add the trailing slash.
Sorry, I heard a whisper somewhere where I can make that out.
Add the trailing slash.
Thank you. You guys are so great. All right, send. Task list. All right, this is one issue with our serializer. Right now, we're creating a user. Obviously, we're not going to have like a task list already in hand to create. So we need to figure out how to make this not required when we're creating a user. So that's something we need to update with our serializer. So let's go to our serializers. As I said, we're definitely going to need to update these. So sure, if I look at user serializer, task list here is currently required. One way I think we get around that is if we have an optional field. I think this should do it if I remember. If not, apologies. If I do task list here. Take it out of here. Will that work? Let's see if this works. All right, so I'm going to send this again. Oops, still need it. So let's take it out of here. Good. All right, there we go. So we got our user. There's no task list on it because obviously we didn't have that when we're creating our user. So we have test1 that got created. So now we could log in as test1, but we're logged in as admin, so I'm just going to go with that. All right, let's create a task list. Let me create one more user since I'm here anyway. So we'll call it test2 for lack of creativity. Oh gosh. Wait, test2 got created, nothing there. So if we actually go back and do a GET request here, it should show us all of our users. All right, so we see test1, admin, and if we scroll a bit, there's test2 down there. But we're kind of missing our task list field. So that's something of concern to me. So I put it into optional fields, but now we're not actually seeing it. So what if we populated it? Will it automatically show up? I'm curious. So we're going to go to task list, which is our other endpoint. let's post there, and let's create a task list. We had a name. Let's just say this is weekend list. We need a user on there. So this user, we're going to have to specify it by primary key. So that's the default way it's mapped over. So I'm assuming that admin is ID 1. So let's make ID 2 equal test 1. Hopefully that doesn't get confusing. What else do we need on here? We had, remember, models. Create a date. So that'll be auto-generated for us. So hopefully we won't need to do that. Yeah, let's just try creating this and see what happens. All right, so weekend list, user 2, authorization should be fine. We're posting here, so that should be fine. All right. I think we're going to the wrong endpoints. Task list with an S. Pardon me. All right, task is required. So we're in the same situation where we're creating a task list, but we don't have tasks on hand ready. So I'm going to move that out for now, and maybe we could make it return later. Okay, maybe this is not the way I want to do it. All right, I think there's a different way to solve this, but let's just go with this right now. All right, send that. All right, we got our task list called weekend 2, owned by user ID 2 and created by at this current time. All right, so that's cool. Let's create a couple more task lists. Let's say May list, task list. Let's say user 2 also owns that. Okay, and then let's say the other user that we created owns a task list for fun list. All right, so we got some task lists created. Let's go back to our users and see what we see in there. Get. Seriously?
Would you like to extend your timeout?
Yeah, I know there's a way to do that. Let's go about doing that. So
I can share something with you.
Sure, if you want to post that in the chat.
You might get to it faster. I just realized my code, my project isn't open.
Yeah, so let's extend that. I'm not sure if it resets every time the server resets, but hopefully that we can get done with it. All right, there's my secret key. Let's put it here. All right, so days equals 2, expiration. I'm just gonna go with these defaults. Hopefully that won't work. Date time, not defined. Okay, server running it. Okay, hopefully that solves our token problem, but maybe we'll have to refresh each time we go. So let me just create a new request. Okay, so yeah, we're posting. to log in. Is that good enough? Interesting. All right, go back to authorization. All right, this gets a little tedious using Postman, so hopefully we could be done with this shortly. All right, send this. Get my load. Users. Get. All right, so we did that. Notice we still don't have our task list here, so I think I screwed up what the optional fields. So let's put those back in to serializers. All right, so you guys are back. So the other way we could do this is taking advantage of serializers. So task lists, I'm gonna actually shuffle these around and put users after task lists and put tasks at the very top. And the reason I'm doing this is because task list kind of owns these tasks. So we want to serialize those values in task lists. We don't really care about doing it the opposite direction. So for each task, we don't need to see all the details of the master task list, right? The task shouldn't care about all the details of the first task list. All it needs to know is linked to some task list, and that's the only data we can store. So kind of hooking this up, we can use serializers here. So if I did task lists, and then that could be equal to serializers and task list serializer. All right, so this will actually use this serializer to populate task lists here. All right, so if I get rid of this, so user can have many task lists. I'm going to set that equal to true. And this is the part that I was trying to accomplish before. If we set required equal to false, this will let us create it without specifying a task list. So I think that's what I was trying to achieve with optional fields. Wasn't working quite how I thought. All right, so we have that, and we want to do the same thing for tasks. So I'm going to put tasks and copy this over.
Ankor, how come when you restarted the server, the tasks that you'd already created got deleted from the users?
I haven't created tasks yet. So I created task lists, but not tasks yet. They weren't deleted, they just weren't being displayed. So if they actually go back,
Oh, okay.
hopefully it didn't log me out. There we go. So we have task lists here. Sorry, real estate's kind of at a premium here. But if you can kind of see what I have here, shift stuff around. Don't let me. All right, so we have our user admin has no task in it, and owned by admin, so that's an empty list. But test one, that user has two task lists. We have the weekend list and then the May list. All right, so empty tasks, we haven't created those. We actually see the detail now. Now that we're using the serializer for task lists, we can see generate that data when we're serializing our user. Likewise, if you go to task list, so that's / task list, we have this, but if we had tasks, we should be able to see the task details here. So let's add some tasks quickly, and then hopefully we'll be done with Postman and get to our React front end. We will take a break shortly. I know we've been kind of running for a long time here. So if I go to tasks and send there, all right, we have no tasks in our system. Let's post here. So I'm going to go to raw body. I squished it. All right, so tasks have a name. What are you guys doing this weekend? Give me some tasks. Assessment 4. Got it. Let's say user, that's going to belong to a task list. So task list. What else do we need down there? Completed was optional. Right. Let's see what we create it with for that completed. Probably can't. Okay, that works. So complete is default to false, and our time values are default to null. Again, if we want to specify a due date, we could have. We'll do that for another one, or we could update those too. All right, let's create another task. What's something you guys are doing this weekend?
Magic the Gathering pre-release.
All right, the Magic.
Hey.
Is that TMG pre-release? Okay, let's put a due date on there. I don't know if the due date makes sense, but let's say we want to get it done. I don't know the format for dates. Can someone help me out here? And just do. Okay, let's just go with this format. All right, due date will be where that is, but let's put in the future. So October 25th will be due date for this particular task. Task list will still be 1. I think we could create that. Okay, so we got another task. Let's create a task, add it to another task list. So what's someone else doing this weekend? Help me out here, guys.
Eating donuts.
What was that? Eating donuts?
Yep.
Great task. All right, that's going to be assigned to task 2. Let's not bother with due dates. Okay, create that. Okay, so we have some tasks. Let's go back to our task list and see what the output is. We got to do a get request.
It might be because you're including the body for the raw.
No, I think I just have the wrong path. Oh, I put a S there. There we go. All right, so again, this is going to be kind of hard to see because I don't have much real estate, but we have our weekend list, and then now we can actually see the details of our tasks. This is because we're using the task serializer. But if we actually looked at the tasks, let me go to my task view. So for our tasks, we have a foreign key, and we only have the ID for our parent task list. That's okay for our needs. It might not be clear now. Like you might say, like, why don't we have the details? Like we're going to need it. Based on the way our data kind of integrates, we have users that own task lists, and those task lists own tasks. So it's fine that we have it that one direction. We don't need the opposite direction going backwards. So we only have IDs here. We could change this by using related fields to have like, I guess, a different display. If you guys want to quickly see that, and we'll take a break, I guess. So we've set up these serializers to get the actual values, but we can't do this in the opposite direction. If I try to do it, let's put it in our task list. So if I try to do something like this, user equal user serializer. If I try to do this, can someone tell me why this might not work?
Because you haven't defined your user serializer yet?
Yep, so this is the case for Python where you can't, JavaScript has hoisting where you could kind of use something before it's actually defined or declared. In this case, yeah, I'll get an error. So if I actually want to see this, let's, all right, we got that error. It says user serializer not defined. That's because it's down here. So we got, kind of a circular dependency going on here if we try to attempt to do this. So that's not the correct way to go about doing this. We can still point back to our user, but we do that through a related field. So we did serializers, primary key. If we set up this way, this will look back and generate a primary key for us, which is what we already have. So this is not actually gaining us anything, but you can actually specify data for it. So if I did query sets, again, this is from documentation, so it's not just magic. If I tell it what data I want to use, it can actually use that primary key and fish out that user for me, if I remember correctly. So if I specify user query set, provided my data, let's see if that changes anything. Out of that task list, send. Okay, so what was I doing? Oh, I don't have users in my output. Test list, I do. All right, so this is still 2. That's not what I expected. Okay, I guess kind of nix that. But if I wanted to make this a string field, maybe that's a little more exciting. Oh, I know why. I don't need this. This is only for if you're writing. So I did, what was it? Serializer string field. String related. All right, so this will give you access to the str method that we haven't done for user, but hopefully it's implemented for us if I do that. All right, so now we actually have our names here. So this is actually looking up the name value from our, sorry, it's looking up the str method for our user, and it's using it there. However, this is not going to be useful for us because we actually want the primary key here. Like if we get this data in our front end, it's not going to be useful to have the user name, because when we need to make a request for the user, we need the primary key. So again, having this data might seem like it's a benefit, but we need the primary key here instead of the string representation for our front end. So I'm actually going to change that back.
Ankur, would that be necessary since you should only get back the lists that are related to the person that's logging? So any lists that you get back are going to be the current logged in users?
Maybe. Let's actually think about that when we get to our front end. But okay. I'm just going to add one more related field here, and then we'll take a break. So we'll do task list. And so I don't think I mentioned this, or maybe you guys are kind of wondering. The reason I'm specifying a query set is because I want to make this read and write. If you don't specify a query set, this will only be a read-only field. So you won't be able to set that when you're creating an object or updating it. But if you specify the query set, this will allow it to be written too also. So that's what's going on there. Task list objects.all. Okay, that looks good. Task list with attributes. 936. Where did I scroll?
It's objects.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, we're good. So now I think when we create, let's see, task list. And we're creating data. So task list was 2. All right, that looks the same. Okay, let's take a break. We're at 10:28. Let's take a 7-minute break. Be back at 10:35, and we'll hopefully get this connected to our front end in the time we have. All right, so there's a fair amount, a few steps that we did there. Kind of want to just recap what we've done so far and then proceed from there. So one thing while we were gone on break, I actually hooked up my front end and back end to my VS Code debugger, so I actually debug if I run into some issues. Yeah, let's kind of quickly review what we've done. So basically, I created my Django app, and I took advantage of Django REST Framework, and then also incorporated authentication. So authentication required just adding some stuff to my settings file, and then the actual important thing was creating a URL or a path that can link to obtain JWT token, and this generates the token for us automatically. So that's what this path is doing. And then I use a bunch of default paths using the default router from Django REST Framework. So again, these paths are automatically created for me. So my base of users, task lists, and tasks, that will follow the REST pattern. So if I wanted to investigate, let me go back to my Postman here. So I don't know if I got logged out. Let's check. Nope, okay, looks like I'm still logged in. All right, so if we want to investigate like individual tasks, we can actually just go to it. So if I go to like task list number 2, this is May task list. It has 1 task of eating donuts. If I go to task list 1, that should have more tasks in it. There we go. We got assessment 4 for our weekend list. We also have TMG pre-release. All right, and then we could update these. So let's say, there actually is a due date for our assessment 4. So let's actually update that. So I'm going to post to this URL, and I can update this. But let's use a feature that we've not actually used very often. Let's actually patch this. Can someone tell me what patch does? All right, I mean, it's fair. We've never really used patch, but patch actually lets you send individual parts of your data instead of saying the whole object for updating. So in this case, if I want to update, so this is my task that I'm updating. If I were doing a put would actually require me to specify all of these fields. So I need to specify the name again, the owner task list completed, and yada yada. But if I only want to specify one field, I could actually patch and just get rid of the fields that I don't want to change. And I can just change due date. So forgot my formatting already. But yeah, so again, patch, you can only specify what data you care about, and the rest of the fields won't be changed. If my internet would go a little faster, that'd be great. All right, so date time fields. Let's take this. All right, so our due date, let's actually make this accurate. So 2/21, it's due on April, what is it, 19th at 8:30, so 08300. All right, so due date, again, I'm only specifying one field, but since I'm patching, this should, hopefully, cross my fingers, only update that field, and the rest of the fields should be fine. So let's send this as a patch. Yeah, hopefully that's all correct. Okay, got an error, not great. Forgot my slash again. Don't forget your slashes. Okay, so we patched, and then if we look at that particular task, where'd I go? Did I update the wrong thing? Oh, sorry. So I want to update a task. I'm not sure what that actually did. So task number 1 is what I wanted to update. So let's go get that. Okay, so we have task number 1, which is assessment 4. That's actually what I want to update. So I think I updated, tried to update a task list, not a task. All right, so we want to update task number 1, so we're going to patch to it. Again, just the due date. So notice due date is null. Let's send this. Come on there. These slashes are driving me crazy. Okay, so we patched. Notice. All right, notice that our due date updated here, but everything else remained the same. So that's the whole benefit of patching. You can selectively pass the data you want and ignore the data that you want to keep the same. So that was our patch. We have an accurate due date for your assessment 4. But cool.
Ankur, how did it know which task to update?
Which task? Because of the URL. This is, again, the RESTful framework. So these URLs are predefined for us. So the ViewSets provide a task and the identifier. So whatever identifier is in the URL, that's what it's going to know to update. So it's just like what we're doing before, where we're extracting the ID from the URL. Django REST Framework is doing that for us, but we're limited to like their predefined URLs based on the default router. If we wanted to customize it, we totally could. But again, if I go back to my documentation, which I closed, default router. So again, just reading that table for default router over here, not simple router. We can patch. Again, these are the operations that are supported for us. When we, like in the past, when we were manually creating the views, we only relied on get and post, and we just handled posts the way we wanted to. But in this case, they're actually using the correct HTTP methods. So we could do a get, which will get the details for that task. Put would update all the values for the task. Patch is what we just did, which is update a particular value or maybe a couple of values we wanted to. And then if we delete to that same URL, we could delete the task from our database. So then this is all coming from default router. So patch is a partial update. Okay, so based on this, I feel like our models are correct. Our API paths seem to be correct. So I'm ready to move on to the front end. That's something that I enjoy more. So yeah, so kind of just wrap this up. We had our URLs created by Django REST Framework. We created serializers, again, using Django REST Framework, so pretty straightforward. Specify the model, the fields. I think I confused you guys. We don't actually need this here because it defaults to primary key. So we can get rid of this. But we still want these tests and task list serializer because that gives us the more meaningful data in our serialized data. All right, so we create serializers, we created our models, and then we also created our views, which were just view sets. Again, very, very simple to come up with. It takes 3 lines, and you have all of your views defined using Django REST Framework. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff. Let's get to the front end. So I actually created a front end that does nothing for us right now. I'll close this. All right, so this is my to-do homepage. So I pull this up a little bit. Basically, there's no functionality here. I could go to a login page, I could go to a register page, and I could log out. But otherwise, like clicking this doesn't do anything, so that's something we're gonna wire up. Same thing with login, like I can type stuff, but nothing happens. And the homepage just has default you're not logged in. Okay, so let's actually give this functionality. Again, what I have coded up here is just the front end with no logic or real meaningful interaction with our API. So that's something we're gonna go about doing now. So if I go back to my project, let's go to our front end project. So this is our React code. All right, so we got to integrate our API that we just created in our backend. So I guess the first thing I'm going to create is an API folder, API, and then we'll create a column there. So let's call it to-do API. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to want to wire in is the ability to log in, because that's obviously core functionality. So let's create that. So I'm going to create a function. I'm actually going to go async await. If you guys wanted to see a .then, a design, we could go with that, but I usually default to async await.
Async. I don't want to see .then ever.
All right, async function. The name will be, let's call it login. This will take in some credentials. Again, the credentials will just be a username and password that we get from our login form. So we're going to do a fetch. So let's do let response equal fetch. We need to go to some URL. So let's define a base. Let's do const base URL. And for our needs right now, it's HTTP localhost 8000 and API is our base URL. Copy that in here. And then when we want to log in, oops.
You just put in that up there as a reference, right?
Sorry. So base URL, and then we get to append a login to that. All right, and then once we get the response, we get a wait on it. So don't forget your waits. Let data equal await response. And I think I forgot something to do in the back end, but we'll tackle that. Fetch .json. All right, that'll process, and then we could return our data at some point. But always want to do a try catch. Don't lapse on your try catches. Proper coding is proper error handling. So catch some error that might happen, and we'll just console log that error. And this is return null in this case. So return something at least, or let's return empty data. Okay, so try catch, basically we're calling login, awaiting it, return data. All right, let's put some breakpoints in here. So let me, please. All right. Hopefully let me break. All right, so we have our login. We pass credentials, should be able to log in. And our data, if we did everything correctly, should be our token. So let's go to our login page that I created before. So we have our login page. Again, it's a simple form on there. When you hit submit, it's going to call handle login. Handle login is this function I have here. So we're going to not do the default functionality. I have my credential objects, which is basically just stripping off the form fields. So I have my username and password. So let's actually use the API that we just created, or the API interface. Is that redundant? I think it is. Import to do API from, I'll find it, API to do API. All right, so we're going to call it here. Again, this is an async function already. I think I was stepping ahead. Let's do let data equal awaits to do API login and some credentials. All right, so if we get the proper formatted data, we should get a token back. So let's do if data.token do something. All right, let's put some breakpoints. There's a breakpoint there. Okay, let's see if this works. Again, we're not going to actually do anything with the login, but let's see if we actually get our expected data back. And if we don't, we should debug our server. So if I go to login.
Ankur, I had a question.
Yep.
In your fetch request, you're just making a GET request, or are you using those credentials to make a POST request?
Thank you. You're right. API. Yep, totally right. Good catch. All right. So we need to make this a post. I'm not actually using credentials, which should have been a giveaway. Let init equal some stuff. So we have method post headers content type. I think we need to stringify all these things, but we'll just do it. All right, method post content type is application / JSON. And then we need a body of stuff. So body that'll be JSON.stringify our credentials objects. Thank you for catching that. Save this, grab a comma there. Okay, hopefully that's what we need. All right, so go to our login page. Nope, still paused. I have no idea what this breakpoint was coming from. Okay, login. All right, we have our test users. We had test 1, password was 123. Let's log in. And what is this? Login's not function. Something definitely broke somewhere. All right, I don't know why I keep stopping this breakpoint here. All right, I have never seen this error before. Rejection. Right. Maybe we're hitting something in our API. So let's put a breakpoint here. I guess we could investigate our console here. Yeah, I've never seen this error. Webpack import module login not a function. Oh, because I didn't export it. So I wish the error was a little better. So exports default login. All right, forgot to export the function I just created. I think that's what my issue was there. Let's try that again. Try.
Did you exit the breakpoint?
Yeah, I had. I think I just wasn't. All right. Method not allowed. So we got 405. We're hosting, but we got method not allowed. Going to API login, which is correct. Why would method not be allowed? Oh, I didn't pass in inits. So, a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes. Let's try that again. Test 1, 1, 2, 3. Anything better? All right, we got 400 bad request, which is different. All right, credentials, password, username look correct. What am I missing here? Do I need a slash here? That wouldn't be it. All right, we got a 404 now. Slash build. Okay, what's going wrong here? Let's try to figure this out. So if I go back to my server, let's go to our views, login.
You don't have to do anything with like the authorization header, do you? And put in the token.
Not currently, but I did skip something from this page. So let's figure that out. So I didn't do this part down here. So let me do that. I don't think this should make a difference. But I could be wrong. So let's dump this somewhere in here. All right, so we have a payload handler. Let's create a file quickly. Let's call it utils.py and dump this code in there.
You had a typo on line 1.
Line 1. Gotcha. One for backend.utils because okay. That was something I was missing. Let's continue this project. All right, we got an error. Okay, that's progress with him. All right, still got a bad request. So, all right, so we're trying to get the login, which is buried in here. Let's see.
You need a trailing slash on that as well?
On here?
Not there, but where you were, the page you were just in.
Don't think so, because when I tried doing that, I got a 404, so that path didn't map correctly. We'll figure this out.
You said you did everything with the cores and the headers, so we're allowed to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got all the stuff, but I definitely could have missed something. Sorry guys. Let's see, login is going there. So let's try to see if we're actually getting this method called. So go to views, let's create a dummy handler. All right, let's see if we actually hit this breakpoint. URL, so comment this out for now. And let's replace that with a view. So login, we want to map over to views. Login here. All right, let's give that a try. So just this route's not going to do anything for us, but let's see if we actually hit it. So let's go to login +1, 1, 2, 3, login. All right, so that's not exciting. All right, so we didn't actually hit that breakpoint, did we? Use login here. No, we got hit. Something's amiss here. So I go back to my API. So we're going to localhost 8000/API/login. Response forbidden. That's getting worse. All right, so one thing we should be doing here is if response.okay. This stuff. All right, so this is kind of frustrating, but maybe this is what you guys were going through, trying to get the token working also.
I didn't get this far.
Definitely have this working, but something's gone awry. I don't think that should matter. Yeah, it's not even hitting my backend handler, which is kind of concerning. Log in here. I have this. Did I map this correctly?
For the whitelist, do we have to put both HTTPS and HTTP? Or just one would be fine in settings?
I just think HTTP should do it, because that's what this is. You could try HTTPS, but definitely have this working at some point. Log in, please. CFRF could not set. Okay, so that would say the CFRF exempts. Django. I don't remember where that comes from. A lot of Django stuff. So we have Django. Use.decorators. That's use.decorators. Import. Let's see if that makes a difference. All right, try this again. Okay, we hit our breakpoint. That's progress. So it's going to return nothing useful to us. Okay, so we got something back. So that's again progress. But we're not getting what we want back. So CSRF was an issue before. Did I miss something from our Tuesday steps? So we have these. All right, so I'm just trying to figure out if CSRF is the thing that's blocking us here. Method decorator. Let's do that for did I do all that stuff? Yeah, I did. Settings. Oh, it's all there. Okay. What else can we do here? So let me call this. Anyone have any ideas? So I'm trying to go to here. Definitely something fishy.
Since when we started doing React, it worked on Postman. Was the issue coming from React since it worked before that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Go back to Postman and try it quickly. Might need a key. We're doing a login with body user. Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't think of that. So it's definitely working here. So our backend likely is correct. Test 1 and password 123. So we're gonna post to login. Headers, we don't need this stuff. All right, so if we post this, we should get a response, right? Enable to log in with provided credentials. And then, all right, so our admin work. It seems like our other logins aren't working. Right, we had test 1, 3. All right, let's see if we actually have that in our database. So go to this, at to public auth users. See what's in our database. So, okay, notice we don't have passwords set for 2 of our users that we created. That is not good. So we have test 1 and test 2, which we created from Postman, but for some reason their password didn't get set. So probably missed something in there. Where were we? All right, so that was in Serializers. So it should be setting the password here. Right here. All right, so let's try creating a new user and see if we actually get a breakpoint there. So users need to post username, password. That's it, right? And we're gonna need a new user. So here. Sure. Oh, yeah, we don't have a sign up page right now. All right, so we gotta log in as admin. Sorry for the detour here, guys. Hopefully we'll get back on track. All right, so admin, we want to log in with post. That's good. All right, we have our token. Let's grab that. Now we want to create a user, so we'll go to users and post to that. We'll post test3 and 1, 2, 3. Headers, media authorization. Place it with a new token. All right, let's give that a go. Put my slash. Oh, yeah, we created our user. Didn't have a breakpoint though. Why didn't we have a breakpoint? There's the presentation. Okay, so I think yeah, I definitely missed something here. So if I go back to that page, yeah, so I'm not actually using a serializer. I think that was, yeah. So that's the whole point of having this. I see. Okay, so users list. All right, that is on me for sure. All right, so we need that view to actually use that serializer. So how do we go back to this? Dump this in here. User list view. Post. All right, so that will actually use that. That all should be good. So create user list view. All right, so we have this user list view. We need to hook it up here, but we're using users here. Path. All right, so we have user list, not user list view. Change that. All right, so we post it here. Again, this is a class-based view. So this is the post handler. Should process for us. Save. That should save the correct password. Okay. That hopefully was all I need. So if we go to user/new and post it there, let's see if that works. Okay, let's try going there. All right, so we want to post the user/new. That. There we go. Try that again. Here that user, so 4. Okay. All right, better. All right, I think that worked. So again, we missed that step. That was pretty stupid on my part. But okay, so we created a route called /new to create new users. And if we go back to our front end now, let's try logging in with user 4. Okay, got a response. All right, finally we're on the right track. So we got 200 response. Notice we got some data, hopefully. Where'd we go? We were in login page. Login page. All right, so let's put a breakpoint here, and let's try logging in again. Data. All right, we have a token, and then we have a username. So that's what we're expecting. So yeah, okay, that was a long detour. Apologize for that, but okay, we have our token. We need to store this token, and then we could use it for our other requests that we make. So let's quickly do that. So I'm going to add a user context. You guys, hopefully you guys remember context. Not like that. Source. All right, so I'm going to create a context directory. And I'm going to create a user context because I want to have these credentials available to wherever I want it. So I'm going to name this context, create a new file, call it user context.js. Let's, if you remember our steps, we need to create a context, supply a provider, supply a consumer, and that's all we should need. So from import create context from React so that we could use that method. Then simply we need to create a context. So I'll do const user context and simply call create context. I'm not going to supply default, and I'm going to export default user context. All right, so pretty simple to create a context. Pretty much 3 lines of code. So that's my user context. I'm going to go to my app.js and import that context. Context, user context. All right, so now I have this context that I can provide to all of my child components from this file. So I'm just going to wrap that. So user context value. Oh, sorry, that provider, because this is where we're providing value from. Value is the prop, I guess we give this, and that'll be some user info. Do something to create that. All right, so we gotta nest all these items in here into our provider. Let's tab correctly though. All right, so this is a great use for context. Basically, we're gonna want this user data accessible from any component. Let's create the data. So we're gonna do const, what is it? User, set user. We're going to create state here, so use state, and default will be null. Right, so we have this user. We're going to want to allow our login page and logout page to update it. So we'll say update user. User. All right, so this will be a method that we pass down to our login page and our logout page. So we do that here. So if I do, let's see, handle login. All right, and we'll do the same with our logout page. User. All right, so login should have a prop now. That's called handle login, or handle login, not past tense, handle login. And that's going to basically allow us to call update user on the parent, and so that we can actually update the user with the relevant data. So go back to login. So we get our data back. Our token is valid. So let's create our object here. So let's say let user equal, say, a token value. So that's going to be data.token. And then What else do we want here? Let's say user data.user, I think was a field on it. So maybe name this a little better, user info. And all right, create that. We're going to call the prop that we just got. So props.handle login, and then we'll pass this user info object. Info, please. All right, user info, and then let's go back to our parent. So here we have update user info, just keep the name consistent. All right, so update user info, we get new user info, and then that calls set state. And then this will trigger a re-render here. All right, so our provider is going to be passing this user info, which is held by our parent, and it gets updated by our login and eventually our logout function. So update user info, take this. All right, we're making progress now. We got 10 more minutes before we're going to wrap this up, hopefully. All right, so this will update. Now we need to consume this value. So let's see. Let's go to our homepage and display stuff on our homepage if we're logged in. So,
hey, Encore, I think it should be set user info on the other page, in login page, I think it was.
Gotcha.
Or yes, user info.
Thank you. Homepage. All right, so now we can actually use our user here. So the way we actually consume it in functional-based components is quite easy. We just use context, and I get that from React. All right, so now inside of our homepage here, we could get our user info, let's call it, equals use context user. All right, that auto-populated from VS Code. So we have our user info. Again, the user info has a token and the actual user object. So let's see, if you're not logged in. All right, so if we're logged in, if user info and user info dot user, let's actually do something with that user. So that user should have a bunch of task lists on them. So we probably want to display task lists. So we probably need a task list component. Kind of jumping ahead here. But I'll create that eventually. All right, so let's see. Not logged in. Let's create an array. So we'll do let task list elements array, and then we'll do a map. So that'll be user info. Again, we're probably going to need to inspect our data, make sure we're iterating on the right thing, but I think we have something called task lists. So we'll do for task lists. What's going on here? Let's actually just do map. Makes more sense. All right, so we're going to use our array function of map. This will take in an item, and that will map out to something. I guess an index can hurt. You guys know your array functions, right? We have map. There's also reduce. There's also for each. All right, so we get an item. Basically, we want to create a task list and get some data. So tasks would equal item.tasks, if that's correct. All right, we definitely want to check all this because I'm kind of assuming the data is correct, and I assume that I know the data structure, but I probably am missing something. So I'm going to do this. All right, so we're going to just create a bunch of taskless components and render that on our homepage. And let's see what else we want to do. So if that's true, return task with elements. Any questions as I'm kind of hacking away here? Anything? I assume this is kind of all over the place, but we're making progress. All right, so on return, the task list components that I created, or elements that I created in a div. Let's see, that should be in curly braces, of course. And let's print a message.
Ankur, when you ran the original fetch for the login, that only returns the token and the username and password, right?
No, it returns the user object. So we'll see the structure of it. I know we didn't investigate it too closely. User info.user. All right, let's see. Let's test because I wrote a lot of code, probably misrepresented the data somewhere. So let's put some breakpoints here. This is our home page. Let's just try logging in. Okay, so we want to probably auto redirect here. So after we handle login, we want to redirect to history dot push homepage. So we're going to need to use history. That's something that React Writer Down gives to us. So use history, and we'll do that. We'll just do that here probably. Should be fine. All right, so we're going to reroute to the homepage automatically. I think that should take care of it. Pass the user info. All right, let's look at our data since we're already broken on it. So if you guys can maybe read this. We have our data that has a token and then this user object. This user object has a username and then a task list array, which is empty right now because this user has no task list. But we have the username and task list. So that's, again, the user object that we have access to. Okay, probably need to restart this. All right, so I'm going to create a component. So components, let's create task list.js. And all right, so this will be a React functional component called task list. The props, again, we're passing in tasks from the parent. So if we have props, we should be able to render tasks. I'm going to create that function. So that'll be a function render tasks. How do we go about doing this? So we have tasks. That's going to be props.task. And let's just print out the titles of the task. We'll create links for them a bit later. Right now, we just want to get something that we can see. So tasks.map. And this will just return paragraphs. So item. If you guys remember, the key value is just a good habit to provide unique keys when you're creating a bunch of elements so that React can kind of track them properly. So that's what I'm doing with the key there. In this case, I'll do item.name. I think is the name of my task. It should be let's return task elements. All right, so that. Missing something here, I assume. Yes, closing parentheses. Okay, so we just create a bunch of paragraphs with the task title. Again, we'll create links, but I kind of want to just have something that we can see. So paragraphs, task list. All right, let's go back to our homepage. Gotta include task lists here. So import task list, which is our component that we just created. So it's going to be in Components. Text list. All right, what other errors do we have? Use state not defined in app. Login page use history called. Okay. So let's move this out to here. And then what else was wrong? We had our app.js. We used useState, but we did not include useState. So let's do that. State from React. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. useState is not defined. This is in app.js, so we just added that. Okay, log in again. So we had test4 was a valid user. Okay, we got some data. We got a response at least. We got some data. That's promising. All right, we have our user info. I guess we just passed data straight up to it, but okay, that's good. All right, now we're in our homepage. So we made it to our homepage. Notice user info has info in it because that's from our context. We got user info. That looks correct. We got a token. We got username. Continue on without errors. Go to that breakpoint. Okay, promising. All right, so we're logged in as this. Obviously, that's an error. We don't have anything shown here because we didn't have any tasks. So let's create tasks from Postman. And yeah, let's try to do that. Okay, Postman to the rescue. So we're going to create a new task. Tasks. We need to post a task. So let's create a task quickly. So name would be, we need to create a task list, my bad. Name will be test4's task list. What else do we have in task? We had user was test4, ID 5 hopefully. Okay, let's let us do it. All right, that created it. I'm shocked that actually worked, but we got user 5, which is task list 4. Hopefully that ID is correct. We could actually check our user out, I guess. So users get. All right, so we have all these users. Unfortunately, the ones we created before don't have a good password. So, all right, we have test4. We don't have an ID out here, so let's resolve that. I'm gonna go back to my serializers because I forgot to include ID in all those. Backend serializers, where are you? Serializers, all right, I'm just gonna add ID fields here so we actually see something useful. So do ID here, ID here, and ID here. All right, save that. Should refresh. All right, so let's try something that again. All right, so notice that we have IDs now that we can see on our task list, on our users. So let's find user 4, or test 4, so that's ID 5, which is correct. We created a task list for user 4, which is this task list, but there's no tasks in it, so that's our last thing to do. So let's create some tasks quickly. Tasks, we got a post. We have to remember our slash. We have a task. Let's say eat more donuts, and that's going to be for task list 4. You guys with me, or have I lost you guys completely? Okay, we created a task. Let's create one more task. Sleep a lot. I guess 1, 2. And eat more donuts. Okay, so we got some tasks associated with task list 4. task list 4 is owned by user 5, which is test 4. Okay, let's refresh our front end. I'm not logged in. Let's log in again. So test 4, 1, 2, 3, log in. All right, we don't need these breakpoints. I'm pretty confident about the data. Sure. Okay, there we go. We got our tasks here. Obviously, we're not linking to them, but if we did want to link to them, we would grab the ID. Actually, no, we don't need to grab the ID because our data should be complete, I think. So we're logged in as test 4. That looks correct. These are the tasks we just created. Let's actually inspect our data and see what else we need to do. But I'm going to stop short of actually doing it because we got to get to the assessments.
Did that user not have a task list name, or are you just not displaying it right now?
I'm not displaying it. Good point.
Okay.
Yeah, the task list component should. So this task list component should do it. We can do that easily. So yeah, we're looping over all the tasks, but let's actually display the task list. Thank you for that suggestion. X there. All right, so our task elements are here. We also can show a task name, so let's put that in H2. And that would be props. I probably could do this better, but we just have the parent pass down the name specifically, or task name. So we're providing the tasks here. Why don't we just provide the actual item? And, all right, so this will be a task list. So that's what our task list will actually get. And therefore here we'll need to do props that props.task list. Props.task list.tasks. All right, this makes more sense. So we pass it down our entire task list so that we can use its name here. I think that should be good. All right, let's give this a try. Hopefully it doesn't blow up in our face. Let's log in again. Get rid of this. Test 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. That's bad. There you go. That's the name we gave it. So it's not actually using the username. That's just the name I gave it, but that is the name for the task list. Then we have all these tasks. Again, running short on time, so we're not going to be able to implement everything. But if you can imagine, we should be able to click on these and like check them off. So if we did that, we could use that patch functionality that we did from our Postman. We could just have an API call that uses the method of patch, passes in the relevant data. So like if I clicked on eat more donuts, that would patch and send this task and check the, turn the completed value on this task from false to true. And that would just update it. And then we could obviously render it a little different here. Obviously, these should be links. So I should be able to click on this and go to a task detail. Likewise, if I'm home here, this is should probably be a link, and that should take me to a task list page. But hopefully you guys kind of get the idea of what we're getting here. We didn't get full into the front end, but we were able to serve up the data and then go about rendering it once we have that data available to us. Again, maybe the last thing I just want to show, if we actually take a look at the data, it kind of just makes it easy the way we bundled it. So let's go to login page. All right, let's do a console log quickly right here. User info. All right, so again, this is something we saw before, but our serializers, since they're nested, we have all that data passed to us for this user. Or is it all the users? I'm not sure. Okay, let's log in one last time. Call this test 4. 1, 2, 3, log in. Console. All right, let's inspect this thing. Let me blow it up a little bit. Get rid of our warnings and errors. Okay, so we got this nice object here. We have user 5. We have all the task lists. In this case, we only have one, but this task list has 3 tasks in it. So again, we have all the data for this particular user, so we don't need to keep making API calls since that's all in this structure for us. So we take this data structure, pass down the props to appropriate components, and basically be on our way. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too helter-skelter. Apologies for that small error where I was not using the user serializer with token. That set us back probably a good 15, 20 minutes. But okay, before we wrap up and get to your assessment delivery, any questions? I know, again, there's a lot to take in there.
Could you upload the code to GitHub, please?
Sure thing, will do. Any other questions?
Not a question, but thanks for doing this. It was really helpful.
Okay, did it make sense a little bit? Again, I know we had like some detours, but the authentication stuff shouldn't be as hard as I made it seem. Just gotta remember, just follow that page that was for our Thursday curriculum. This should get you set up. And then I guess the small difference was that instead of relying on manual routes, I'm just using Django REST Framework routes for my main functionality. I mean, I'm still using this because that's stuff I missed. But otherwise, hopefully the key takeaway was Django REST Framework, super easy. You create your ViewSets, create your routes. Again, each are pretty much like a couple lines. The serializers is probably the toughest part, kind of just understanding the correct way to chain them. So basically, my user is my main object, and that contains task lists. So that's my last serializer in this, I guess, ordering, because I want to take advantage of the serializers for my task list, and likewise for my tasks, within my task list.
Can I ask if you can please, just because it's before you upload this, could you please use maybe like timestamps? Just it's such a long lecture, you know what I mean? Like during like in the video.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll try my best. I've not done that before, so I'll try to break it up into maybe like front end, back end, and maybe we got some serializers. But I'll say I'll try.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, I can't.
Crazy.
I'll look into it. Okay.
Appreciate it.
With that, we're at 11:39. Let's take a quick 6-minute break, and then I think Tom will go over assessment 4, and you guys could ask any questions, and then we'll get to lunch. All right.
Thank you, Encore.